friends, and welcome back to Catapedia. My name is Kat and I'm a filmmaker and journalist. Today we're going to be looking at a topic that is a combination of two things that I'm really passionate about: parenting and mental health. I was really excited when I was doing the research for this. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. How many times have you heard someone say, I just want the best for my kids? I've said it a lot too in hypotheticals. If I were to have kids, I'd want the best for them. I mean, what sort of parent would you be if you say, I want the worst for my kids? Not even worse, but I want average for my kids, because average. It doesn't make sense, right? It seems obvious. As I got older, I realized that financially the so-called best might not be so easy to get. I mean, best case scenario, yippee, yes, we can afford and provide all of that. But otherwise, that's a lot of pressure, and earning those dollar bills ain't always easy. And it got me thinking, what is the best? And why do we want that best? First off, what is the best? Biologically, let's say that you've hit the jackpot. Whether it is you, your partner, or an adopted kid's genes, you've got the genes that are required to have intellect, multilingualism, and looks, and athleticism, all of that. And then for your surroundings, for the academics, you put them in the top tier school. Skills like tennis, chess, swimming, let's say you give them all of that. Putting aside, of course, that each of those is going to take input from you both time-wise and financially. And then something like languages, let's say you hire a private tutor, or you talk to them in multiple languages. You've created an insanely well-rounded surrounding for your kid. I'm painting this idealistic picture where the parent, you, has all the time and financial resources needed. Through blood, sweat, and tears, you do manage to provide them with all of this. And then the kid turns out to be, to put it politely, a poophead. The biological lottery didn't work out. What if they rebel against everything that you've tried to provide them with in their surroundings? And you end up with a dumb, ugly kid who follows the wrong crowd and may not be talented or interested in any of the things that you value the most. If these are concerns that are popping up in your head, then it might be worthwhile to ask yourself some further questions. For example, why do you want to give them the best? Is it because you want to provide them with something that you simply didn't have as a kid? Or maybe it's a way for you to prove that you're able to provide this for your kid. A way to showcase your power or what you've managed to achieve as an adult? Or is it because you just want them to grow? Or is it because you just want them to be in a safe environment so they can grow and develop comfortably? And an even bigger question, why do you want a kid? It's important to recognize that every human has limitations, and there is a fine line between providing and sacrificing. Once you find yourself describing what you're doing for a loved one as sacrificing, that's when alarm bells should start ringing. Now, I've heard so many parents around me use that term, especially the older generations of Asian parents. You see so much of this in TV dramas. It's literally a part of the template script. Some older, wise grandma or grandpa will say to the main character, oh, your father and mother have sacrificed so much for you. You must respect them. You must listen to them. You must show them that it was worth their time and effort. Have you heard that? If you've watched Asian dramas, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. The respect part, yes, I absolutely agree. But it is also a two-way street. Respect the child if you want the child to respect you, right? The other parts of what that grandma/grandpa said, well, let me tell you a story of little me when I was in year 3. At that time, we were given these weekly multiplication table tests. And if you get everything right, you get a star or something. It's timed, it's one of those bursty, high stress moments when you feel like you're a spy doing some big mission, but really it's just a list of, I don't know, 50, maybe 100, probably closer to 50 multiplication questions, and you're given a very tight time setting, and you go at it like a machine. That was the age where, you know, if they tell you they're going to give you a star, which is a piece of sticky paper in the shape of a star, you think it's totally worth your effort. And oh, if it has sparkles. At that age, a star meant something. It was validation, proof to our parents who don't see us at school all day that we were doing well. And what happens when you do well? You get praised. Maybe we were smart and we figured that a sticky piece of paper equals validation, equals proof, equals praise, equals feeling good. Or we just thought the piece of paper was pretty. Either way, we worked for those stars. And I was very competitive as a kid. And this one time, I got a question wrong. Oh, the horror. Most weeks, only 2 to 3 kids would get full marks. So I thought, meh, oh well, okay, I got one wrong this week. I'll survive. So on the way back home, when I sat in the front seat in the car, which was an absolute privilege, I was telling my parent about my day, and I decided, you know, to downplay my achievement. And I said, oh, it's so annoying, I got one wrong. I was expecting a response like, oh, that's alright, it's just one. There's always next time. You did pretty well. So maybe I would still get some praise. It's like a cat getting first stroked for a job well done. Then they asked what it is that I got wrong. And I said, 5 times 7. I put 30 instead of 35. I remember that to this day. And then their response was a bit different to what I expected. It was stronger than I thought it would be. How could you get that wrong? That's so easy. What are your teachers doing? Are we not paying them enough? It was kind of just a comment in passing, really. But to a child, everything is a little bit exaggerated, you know? And I remembered that moment because it felt spiky. I felt the spiky sensation inside. It's when your stress suddenly peaks for a moment. It clocked in my head that getting something easy wrong is bad. Making a mistake is bad. I must not make mistakes. Forewind a year. This is now year 4. We just done our end of semester test last week and we're getting our papers back. I always had this mixture of nervousness and excitement when the teacher was handing back the papers. Because in my head, I'd be thinking, ooh, what did I get? What did I get? What did I get? Did I get 100%? No, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't jinx it. Because what if I think about getting it and then I don't end up getting it? 99? Yeah, that'll be fine. 98? Yeah. 97? I guess it's fine too. 96? Oh, I hope I didn't get 95. I hope I didn't get 94. What if I got 94? What if I got 93? As she put the paper down, I saw that it wasn't any of those numbers. It was in the 80s. The 80s? I think it was 86 or 87%. I felt that same spike that I felt a year before. A wave of utter humiliation washed over me. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't a crybaby, but I felt these tears bubbling up and coming to the surface, and I tried so hard to push it down. I had to move super slowly because I didn't want to accidentally nudge one of the tears down my face, because that would have been so embarrassing. All the other kids had already left, and the teacher noticed that something was a bit off. She was very perceptive. Initially, I didn't respond to her, but after a bit of prodding, I told her that I got a score in the 80s and my parent would be so disappointed. At that age, I was already worried and thinking that I was so lucky to be at this school, to be in this situation, and to be provided with a good education. I had to prove that I was worth it. It was only then that the teacher told me that, you kind of got one of the top scores because this paper was really hard. And yeah, that did make me feel a bit better. But I was still worried about how I was going to tell my parent that I scored in the 80s, because that was a big no-no. Looking back at it now, it feels really strange. Why does it matter so much, right? It's just one score. I mean, it's a primary school, year 4, mid-year test. Well, my friends, it's because I wanted to seem worth the time, the effort, and money that my parents had put into providing me with this education. They had tried to provide me with the best that they could, and I wanted them to feel that I was worth it. As the old grandma in that TV drama series would have said, they'd sacrifice so much for you, or me. The danger here is in what the word sacrifice means. I googled it, and it said, to forfeit something for something else, considered to have a greater value. Sacrifice does not mean giving up something for nothing. It means giving up one thing for something else we believe is worth more. If you believe that your child's happiness, safety, the environment around them is worth more, that's fine. That's amazing. That is great. But if you start wanting and waiting for something in return, that can get dangerous because you are unknowingly putting your child in a debt to you. I found a very interesting article online that looks into something called relationship debt and how it's a slippery slope to emotional blackmail. Let's see what it says. Relationship debts arise when we give up something important about ourselves in a relationship. These debts represent true sacrifices. However, because of these great acts, we expect certain things from the other person in return. Thus, we contract debts that no one notices. And then it continues to say, relationship debts can be contracted between partners, friends, or even family members. Sometimes they actually end up becoming emotional blackmail. We demand what we believe we deserve. We sacrifice ourselves and give without any limits. However, in the end, we just want unlimited compensation for it. That part about giving without any limits, I think that is such a huge theme in a lot of the Asian parents that I've met. Other parents might also do this, but from my personal experiences, it's definitely been a lot of Asian parents who give up absolutely everything just to give the kid the best. But is this exactly what we just read about, where they're expecting unlimited compensation for it? Or are they just giving this willingly because they just want to? This type of debt is contracted as an opportunity to let the other person see how much we care, and at the same time, to ask for and receive what we believe compensates us for our great sacrifice. We want to exercise control that we don't have. that's when blackmail begins. I think that this first sentence about how it's an opportunity to let the other person show how much they care is so true, because when you do something good for someone else, it feels good inside. I oftentimes like doing something for someone else, not just because I want to be a nice person, but because I also feel good inside. And usually it works out for both of us because they get something out of it and I feel good. But in this situation, if it is to make the parent feel better, and then in turn they end up expecting so much from the kid, it could create a huge imbalance. And as this article suggests, it could lead to some sort of blackmail. You may be asking, well, okay, Kat, how do we avoid this? The article answers this too. First of all, we should understand right away, although it may seem cold, we need to tell the other person what we expect in exchange for our effort. If you realize you won't receive a quarter of what you expect, it's best to not make that sacrifice. Now, how does this translate into children and kids and parents? Well, when you have a child, there's no way that you can negotiate with them and say, hey, for being born, you need to do XYZ in return, because they didn't ask to be born. They can't hear you, and if they're already born, they won't be able to understand you. So the parents must be mentally prepared that they're not negotiating with someone who can reasonably understand what's at stake. So, why do you want the best for your child? And do you expect anything in return? I think if I were to have a kid, I would want the best that I can provide for them. But I know that if I sacrifice too much of myself, I won't be happy. And it's very difficult for me to imagine a scenario where a parent is unhappy, or both parents are unhappy, and they're able to provide a safe, comfortable, and more or less happy environment for the kid. It's hard to keep that pressure, that feeling of I'm owed something for what I have done, away from the kid, because the kid is the person that you're giving all this to. So yes, maybe we do want the best for our kids, but maybe the best that we want for our kids, it doesn't have to include everything. Most likely parents will want what's best for their kids, or at least the best that they can provide, and that is wonderful. But remember that your kid might not be the best at all of these things. And if they're not, it's not their fault. What we can do is recognize that, as I mentioned before, humans have limitations. The kid has limitations. They may not be talented in the same way as you are, or they might not have the same interests. And parents have limitations too. So it's important to recognize when you're providing for your kid, don't provide over your limit. So yes, of course, give the best that you can if that's what you want, but make sure that it is within the limitations of what you would still not call a sacrifice, in which you would expect something in return. Because your mental health is just as important as the kid's mental health, and finding that balance, I think, could be the key. Don't end up signing this sort of relationship debt contract with your kid. It sounds weird, doesn't it? Having that contract, having that debt is probably not why you want to have a kid. Most likely, you want someone to love you back, hopefully. I know that everyone has different reasons. For me personally, I'd want to have a friend. I'd want to have a friend that I can mentor, guide. Ultimately, just someone to have fun with in life. Thank you so much for watching this video. What are your thoughts? I am extremely passionate about mental health, and I would love to hear what your experiences have been like and what your thoughts are on this topic. I have found that with regards to mental health, everything is always a learning process. No one knows everything, and sharing and caring and being understanding is all part of that learning process. So thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was somewhat informative. As always, stay safe and healthy. Until next time, bye!